Got some good ones in week 2 of college football.
Yes, we do.
Let's start in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Number 3, Texas takes on the number 10 Michigan Wolverines. Texas is currently a 7.5-point road favorite. This will be big noon kickoff. So we got an 11 a.m. Central Time on Fox. What do you think, Ted? 7.5. That feels like an awfully large spread for the defending national champions at home. But the offense didn't look super crisp in the opener against Fresno State, even though I think Fresno State's a pretty good football team. You got the 2 quarterback system with Davis Warren and Alex Orji. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Meanwhile, Texas they look sharp in their opener. What do you think?
Well, I watched some Michigan, watched their defense specifically, and they are really, really, really good. Their front seven is Fresno. Their offensive line is it just goes backwards on every play. Run game, pass game, it doesn't matter. The line of scrimmage is absolutely dominated in a way like we were talking about the Houston game where you got guys like coming free left and right. That's not what I'm talking about. Fresno is well coached. They're blocking the right guys, but they're just getting absolutely manhandled like you don't see a whole lot in college football. The backers are smart, they're physical, they play downhill. When you watch their defense, everyone is where they're supposed to be on every single snap. And on top of that, they are big and they are athletic. Secondary covers great. Safeties tackle really well when they come down into the box. They present, they didn't show a whole lot against Fresno, but they'll give you some different looks up front. They'll get in bare. They'll play their 2 interior guys straight up in 2 eyes, and they're really good on the interior. They rotate through a bunch of guys on the edge, and I am shocked that Texas is a 7.5-point favorite.
I would take the points with Michigan. And I know that Texas knows what they have at quarterback with yours, and Michigan, it's definitely a little up in the air. But I trust Michigan's defense to make things difficult on Texas' offense. I don't think Texas has a Malia type of offensive line. I think if they're going to find success in the run game, it's going to be perimeter stuff. And they run a lot of pin pull. They like to get out on the edges. I just have a hard time imagining them having success in between the tackles.
Yeah. And that's what, they're going to, I think they're going to have to try and spread Michigan out. And I know that they're going to be, way better at the skill position than Fresno was. It's not even close. But at the same time, it's not like Fresno was I don't even know if they're good or not at the skill position because a lot of it just doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? The coverage is perfect. They are under and over guys whenever they have the fire zone stuff going. They are just really smart, really disciplined. They trust one another because they're all in the right spots. So, even if you spread them out, I just don't know that that's going to be a quick, easy answer for anything.
I think Sarkisian's so good that he'll scheme some big plays up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll have some big chunk plays, and that will get them multiple scoring opportunities in this game. The interesting discussion for me is the other side. I think Michigan's going to be able to run it against Texas. Just watching them in their opener, I think this is the game where they really feel the loss of Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to the NFL.
They were way better equipped for this matchup last year.
Jermaine Lole and Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, those guys are not Murphy and Sweat in the interior. Now, I do think that Michigan's not as good as I thought they'd be at center, and definitely not as good as I thought they'd be at right guard. But I still think those guys can move Texas off the football. And it's like watching two different sports, watching what Texas does offensively versus watching what Michigan does offensively. So I actually think this can be a higher scoring game than people think, because I think Michigan's going to be able to move the ball. And then I trust Sarkisian to be able to scheme some things up and for Texas to be able to score some points against an elite Michigan defense. But from a betting standpoint, no chance I'm laying 7.5 with the Longhorns at the big house. There's just no chance. There is this. A bunch of these guys on Texas's team were a part of the team that went to Tuscaloosa and won last year.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some confidence there. I don't think they're going to be intimidated walking into the big house by that environment, because there's going to be belief there because they did it a year ago. So I do think that matters some, but I just think that I think Michigan's better at the line of scrimmage. I think Texas is better at quarterback. I don't know which one to weight more than the other, but I think it's going to be a great football game, and I think it's going to be really, really close. I can see either team winning it, but I don't think it's a game where one of these teams ends up winning by double digits. That would surprise me.
Yeah. I don't know. From what I saw of Michigan's defense, whenever when you have, it's hard to go in and win in a tough place on the road in a big environment. But whenever they've got what, I don't know, they may not be better defensively than Georgia, but that may be the only people they're not better than. And I'm not even sure they're not like right there with or better than Georgia. When you have a defense like that and 105,000, I don't know how many that place holds. It's a lot. That is what gets really, really difficult. And I think like a lot of offenses like Texas, like we've been there in the past with our offenses, you really build on momentum. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get that momentum going. This is going to be a huge test for Quinn Ewers. This is a bigger test than going into Alabama last year. Alabama got good last year. They did not look like Michigan's defense looks like right now whenever Texas went to Tuscaloosa last year. But, you're right. Sarkisian is a big factor here with how good of a coordinator he is. Quinn Ewers looked good in week 1. He's got a ton of experience up to this point playing in big football games. But I'm going to take Michigan to win the game. Tight. I think it's going to be lower scoring just because how good their defense is and the way they play offense. I just don't know how many possessions Texas is going to get. If you typically get 12 in a game, if you average 12, I would say in this game you may get 9, may get 8, and that's going to affect that number. I mean, how many touchdowns? If you got 8 drives against Michigan's defense, how many touchdowns are you going to score?
Not many.
Yeah.
I think Ewers has to be elite in this game. When the big plays are there to be made, he has to make them. He can't be late with the football, and he certainly can't turn it over.
Right.
Can't turn it over. So I would keep an eye on Texas' right tackle position. I think they have a bit of a weakness there. But I don't
If you
I
got a
want no
weakness on
business of,
the offensive line, it is going to show up in a hurry against that front.
yeah, that's why I kind of like Michigan in the game. Would I take Michigan money line? No, I would not.
It's scary
I'd
because
take
of
the points.
just how good Texas's offense is. Like
I just
that's
have
the
a
big
ton of
equalizer.
respect for Sarkeesian as
Yeah,
a play caller and play designer. I think he's really, really good.
yeah. And that's one of the problems that Texas has is Michigan's got a new defensive coordinator. So like how much do you really have like what's going to be up their sleeve is I guess what you don't really know what to plan for.
Moving on to the next game. Colorado traveling to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Cornhuskers. This is a 6:30 kickoff on NBC. Nebraska currently a 7.5 point favorite. And Ted, all eyes will be on the quarterbacks in this one. Dylan Raiola and Shedeur Sanders. This should be fun, man.
I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it. I don't know why it is. Are the rest of the Sooners like me really pulling for Nebraska? I don't know. It just feels like college football is better whenever Nebraska is a good solid program. Dylan Raiola looked good in week one. Um, they're not or Nebraska is not back yet. They've got some pieces that look good. True freshman, first game. You have to be really excited with what you saw from Dylan Raiola. Shedeur Sanders, though, is like it's a diamond in the rough. Colorado has just a small handful of really good players. I thought, what's his name, Jimmy Horn. I thought he looked really good. He's exciting to watch. But being in Nebraska, I think is going to be a big factor. That's going to be a big time environment. I'm going with Nebraska, but Shedeur Sanders can keep them in the game just with his playmaking.
Doesn't this feel like a huge game for Matt Rule?
Oh yeah.
It
Oh yeah.
it feels bigger for Matt Rule than it does for Deion Sanders
Oh, there's no doubt. No doubt.
because and you're starting your 5-star true freshman quarterback that the entire fan base is just ecstatic about. It's year 2. You were hired to resurrect Nebraska football from the ashes. You got to win this game if you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because
No,
from a talent standpoint, I you have a more talented roster probably if you're Nebraska. Now you don't have Travis Hunter. But that's the thing about this game. Nebraska's good on defense.
yeah, they're solid.
I trust them to have a plan to limit Travis Hunter's impact on offense. And Colorado couldn't run the ball against North Dakota State. I can't imagine they're going to find a bunch of success running the rock against Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska is this is not a new thing. It's always been like this. They are huge on the offensive and defensive line. They've got just some gigantic players.
I like Nebraska to win, and I kind of could see it by double digits. Now, Raiola has to be smart with the football.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest football game of his life.
Yep.
And you really never know how a young guy's going to respond in an environment like that. But if he just takes what the Colorado defense gives them and then hits a couple of the big shots down the field that he is certainly capable of hitting, I see Nebraska winning this football game.
Yeah.
But there's always this X factor of, hey, if Travis Hunter gets some one-on-one matchups and just goes off, then you never know. But I just think overall that Nebraska defense is kind of the differentiator in this one for me.
It's going to be a lot more difficult for Travis Hunter in this game. I'm not exactly sure what Nebraska's got at corner, but you're going to see quite a big step up in quality at the corner position in the secondary with Nebraska compared to what they saw a week ago. And you're right. I think the big thing that you hit on there that is like if you're Nebraska and you get a 2-3 score lead and you're Raiola, don't get the big eyes on trying to make some of these highlight reel plays because all it takes is a turnover and Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter to hook up, and all of a sudden they can be right back in the football game. So I agree with you.
We both like Nebraska, which means Colorado by double digits.
Yeah, yeah. It is kind of an interesting game to pick because Nebraska has been in these situations over the last couple of years, and it's like, here it is. Here you go. This is the
remember,
one.
remember Jeff Sims in this game a year ago? Just
Yep.
handing the ball to Colorado
Yep.
repeatedly. I I
Yep.
don't think that's going to happen again. So really the reason I like Nebraska is the defense. I think
Yep.
they're going to make things difficult on Colorado, but I'm sure that's a great point, Ted. Can Nebraska avoid the just ridiculous
Performance anxiety.
the
Yeah.
ridiculous mistakes that have plagued that program over the last couple of years that
Yeah.
Matt Rule was brought in to alleviate?
Yep. That's the thing to watch. It's like they're the better team. They're at home. They've got the better players across the board, but there's like some unknown force that's keeping them from winning.
We'll see. All right, one more game. Number 14 Tennessee will take on number 24 NC State. This game is at the Panther Stadium in Charlotte. 6:30 kickoff on ABC. Currently, Tennessee is a 7.5 point favorite, and Nico Iamaleava looked very good in their opener. I know it was against Chattanooga, but still, the guy absolutely looks the part, playing on time. Looks like he has an absolute rocket of an arm. And meanwhile, on the other side of things, NC State was down 21-17 heading into the fourth quarter against Western Carolina in their opener. Now they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter and won 38-21, but that game felt awkward for quite some time. So what do you think, Ted? The Vols, I hate to say it, but they kind of look like the real deal this season.
I think they just. I would be shocked if NC State. I guess it wouldn't shock me if they go to halftime and they're within reach, but I don't think they have the personnel. And the Amaliava for Tennessee is young, and the turnovers can pop up at any time. We haven't seen it yet. He's looked solid in his the two games where he's had a lot of playing time. Did he start the bowl game? He
Yeah,
did.
and looked
So
really
his
good.
his two starts have looked good. He hasn't put the ball in danger, but as a young player that can pop up at any time, I mean that to me, it's the only way NC State is able to hang around in this one is if the turnovers show up. I kind of expect Tennessee to separate in the second half. I mean, I'd pick them to win by 17 probably. I know it's a tight line, but it just kind of feels that way.
I I'm with you. I see Tennessee winning this one by double digits. I do think NC State is a better football team than they showed in the opener.
Mm-hmm.
I I like Grayson McCall a lot. I just don't think they'll be able to keep pace with Nico and the Vols offense. And one of the things about this Tennessee offense and all the discussions about Nico and the wide receivers, and I get that with the big plays that Hype's offense produces. I think they're going to run it really well in this game. And I think that is what's going to set up Nico to take those deep shots down the field. And even though NC State has an awesome name combination at wide receiver with Kevin Concepcion and Justin Jolie, just awesome
Huh.
wide receiver names. I just don't think those guys are going to be able to produce or match the chunk plays that Tennessee produces in this game. The crowd, is it going to be a 50-50 crowd in Charlotte? I know the Vols fans travel really well. I don't know what that's really going to look like. I am.
Where's NC State?
It's in Carolina. It's in North Carolina.
Well, I mean, is it
Let's
close
see
to
how
Charlotte?
close it is.
Um,
Stall 10, and I will. It's in
well,
Raleigh. So how close is Raleigh to
I think
Charlotte?
it's is Raleigh north of Charlotte? I don't know. Don't get me lying. Um, I I imagine it's got to be
2 hours and 22 minutes.
NC State. They're a top 25 team. They've been a solid program recently. I imagine that this has been built up pretty big for that fan base. You got to imagine that they're going to show up in some big numbers too. Like Tennessee's going to have more just because they have a bigger fan base. There's more people with a chance to buy out some of those tickets. But I would expect it to be fairly close.
Yeah. Tennessee's not a
Sold
bad
out
drive
though.
either.
It's
So,
going to be a big atmosphere. That'll be cool.
yeah, it should be. I think you're going to see quite a bit of orange. Yeah, it's 3 hours and 42 minutes from Knoxville. So I I wouldn't be surprised with how big of a fan base Tennessee's got. And NC State, that's an underrated fan base, man. Those people get after it.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be pretty even though the game's being played in the state of North Carolina.
Yep. I agree.